Know, Grow, Go podcast. I'm Matt Jordan. I'm the senior pastor here at First Methodist Church, and we have...
Amy Young. I'm the Family Ministries Director. I had to look at you as if I didn't know.
She's the doc in the box.
Yeah.
The doc of the church. We're glad she's with us. Glad she's part of our faith family. And today we're going to be talking about something really, really deep into her wheelhouse of expertise. And it's not just family discipleship. That's what we've been talking about. It's homegrown faith. This is our last podcast about family discipleship. I mean, in this series, right? That's part of what we do and focus on as a church is how to disciple families. So it won't be the last time we talk about it, but in this series of things, this is our last one. And what I wanted to do on our last one, and you and I talked about this, is really something that we've tried to incorporate into Sunday school and have tried to incorporate even in creating this family discipleship guide, and that's curriculum. And I think curriculum, some people hear that as a bad word. Yeah. And some people like me who do a lot of different teaching and speaking engagements and things, I hear curriculum and I'm like, you saved the day. Right. Here is something I don't have to recreate that I can use and give people, and it's a tool for me. So curriculum, buzzword, first thing that's coming to your mind. Tell us about it, Doc.
Oh, the first thing that comes to my mind when I hear curriculum, and I'm like most people that kind of shy away from it, is learning in a box rather than So something that you may not know about me is I like to change frequently. Meaning, yes, I do.
You?
Like, if I spend like 6 or 7 months doing something, I kind of want to do something else after that.
Wow.
Much less 3 years of scope and sequence. So, yeah. So I don't like when you say curriculum initially, I immediately am like, for one, I could write my own stuff and cater it and turn it and make it adjustable for our church, our groups. And then I'm like, that's going to put us in a box for 3 years. And so immediately I kind of shy away from curriculum, especially one that's going to last for more than a year or so. But that is not the way we should do things.
I ate the same breakfast for 2 years until Marilyn and I got married.
That is interesting.
Every day.
I am not.
2 eggs, fried, 2 pieces of bacon, and a piece of toast.
That sounds like an American breakfast.
And a cup of coffee, or a pot of coffee, if we're being honest. Yeah. Whole pot.
Put a straw in the pot.
You know, we were at the beach house the other day, and on one side we've got a 5-cup coffee pot, and the other I got a 12-cup. And so I grabbed the 12-cup and brought it over to my side. And we had some friends over there, and they're like, hey, there used to be 2 coffee pots. You know, where's the other one? And I said, here, you can have the 5-cup. And they said, okay, that's fine. And I said, I've got coffee cups bigger than this, so just take that. I take my coffee pot with a straw and enjoy that. So just like today, today I have had a Celsius. I've had 2 or 3 cups of coffee.
Walking in with a Celsius, I was like, wow.
And listen, I went and got coffee with a person who's been visiting the church, and I got an Americano with an extra shot. 5 shots.
Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And look what I mean. This isn't water.
This
is coffee. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I am ready to roll. And that's one of the reasons I love curriculum. Is curriculum gives me a bit of structure, and sometimes that's the one thing I need in my life that I don't give myself.
Mm-hmm. And it is better for, when you have so many other ministry responsibilities to be able to get a good curriculum. There's not ever a perfect curriculum ever. But you find a good one that's gospel-centered and biblically grounded and helps us become better disciples of Jesus, then you use it because then it takes a little bit off your plate when you're not writing something yourself, which is what I love to do. I love to write things myself, but it helps for alignment, which we're going to talk about in just a second, when we are all able to do the same curriculums together and we're not having to write pieces of it for students and kids and adults.
And I think curriculum is something that some people have a lot of experience with and some don't. I remember when I first started out in ministry, I was a youth director at a little church. We had, 13, 14 kids at the church, and Easter Sunday, I think we hit like 75 people at church. I mean, it was just a small church, and my grandmother asked me what curriculum we use for Sunday school, and I said, the Bible?
The Bible, yeah.
And she's
get
like,
that a lot. Like, why can't we just use the Bible?
She said, well, you don't use, I think one of them was like Life Point, or why don't you use David Cook, or I mean, it was whatever thing she was using at her church. And I said, I think we got curriculum. I said, I don't know if they got it for the students. I've only been here like a month, and she said, well, you got to have a good curriculum. It helps you. And she's just a huge fan of curriculum. And what I've learned is that there's always a couple of people on this. There are those that love curriculum because of what they learn in preparation, teaching, and consistency. And sometimes that's easy, right? They've got something they can use that lays out clearly the teaching of the class and lays out clearly arts and crafts and examples and those things. And for your non-teachers, and I would even say for your teachers who are just tired by the time Sunday comes around.
Yeah.
But for your non-teachers like me who coming up with arts and crafts or transitions and those sorts of things, if it's not in like a lecture, sermon, preaching type thing, I struggle. I mean, I just really do. And that's because that's just not my mindset. That's just not where I go. I'm not a proponent of diversified teaching for diversified learners. I'm more of the old school of, if this is how your teacher teaches it, then you better learn to learn it. And my
learning styles is not a thing.
Yeah. My mother was that way, and that's how a lot of times how I grew up. It's just if you put in the work, you can do it, and you can learn it. And not everybody's that way. Nobody learns that way. Nobody teaches that way. But I think that curriculum helps people like me in that. But what it also does is it helps build consistency in the class. Everybody knows what to expect. And for me, I teach Sunday school partly because I love it, right? And I like that community, but I love to teach. I mean, I just really enjoy it. And the class I teach is a group of young adults that have a lot of commitment. They're real busy. And so I don't like to be idle on Sundays. So it gives me something to do between the services as well. And sure, there are 10,000 things I could be doing between the services, but it gives me another way to provide some type of congregational care, even in teaching. So I really enjoy it, but it helps me on the days that I can't be there to be able to toss that curriculum guide to someone and say, I need you to teach this. And they don't have to come up with anything else. Mm-hmm. They don't have to say, well, what am I going to teach? Or if we're going through Ephesians, I'll never forget this. We used to just open up the Bible, literally. And I was trying to teach them how to interpret the Bible or read it when you just wake up in the morning for a devotional. What do you read? How do you do it? And I had somebody say, Matt, you picked the one day to be gone, the one Sunday when we're talking about circumcision in the New Testament.
Nice.
And I said, yeah, I mean, it's just part of the scripture. Just read it and talk about it. Yeah. And I think it was Hannah Moore, and she was like, are you kidding me? And she did it. She did it flawlessly. She's a great substitute teacher, great teacher, best small group leader I ever had when I did student ministry. And her teaching style and mine are two different things. But what I learned in that is some people are comfortable with that. Some people are comfortable with doing whatever they're tasked with doing. Mm-hmm. And others just thrive on the fact that if there's curriculum, then I don't mind stepping in to help teach because it's structured. It gives me information that I don't have. That's not at the normal information that I possess and hold on to. And it's something that can be utilized easily and utilized pretty well. So I think people like curriculum in those ways. Those that don't like curriculum are folks like you and me who also consider, I really could write this better. How on earth did you get that reflection question? Or isn't this the student section? Like, why is this? No student deals with this like an elementary school. We're talking about teenagers. Mm-hmm. That's not real. Or even for me with adults, it's like, why aren't you? Why do you just assume that everybody loves their kids while they're teenagers? Right? I mean, I can't tell you how many times I have a prayer request in the Sunday school class. It's like, listen, I don't want to go to jail. So just pray for my children, pray for me, pray for our home. I love my child, but sometimes I just want to, just want to treat them like an adult, and not necessarily in a positive way. Yeah. And I think that's the reality. And I think that sometimes curriculum, I don't know if it's probably for sales, but I think sometimes curriculum gets so close to the line of this may be what people think, but we're not going to say that, And I'm more like I don't know if you ever watched maybe White Chicks, I'm a lot more like well, you thought it, and then you said it. I'm the one that said it. Like I'm like, let's just own this, all right? Yeah. Let's just say it. Let's just put this out there. This is where everybody's thinking. This is what the reality is. What does Jesus say? right? Because if we're not talking about reality and our faith, then what are we learning here? We're living in a make-believe world.
Yeah.
And that's not what Jesus would have us do. So so I struggle with curriculum there. Sometimes it doesn't get to those depths of reality and when it's talking about practical things. The other thing that I struggle with curriculum, and I want to hear your thoughts on this, is oftentimes it doesn't go in depth enough, in my opinion, biblically, that I think it should.
Yeah, I think it's all in what you're trying to use the curriculum for and in what types of groups. And so in seminary, we learned that there are a couple of different types of groups. There's a closed group, an open group. And an open group means that anybody at any stage of their spiritual journey, their spiritual maturity, can come to that group. And so to use a curriculum that anybody could start discussing and understanding is what's needed for an open group, which is what our Sunday morning groups are. Anybody at any point could come to a group. But a closed group does not mean that people can't come to that group. It just means that there's some pointed topical discussions and some things that are deeper.
In closed groups, we brand ourselves to make our commitment.
Yeah. So
with a brand.
Yeah. Not literally. You can still come to closed groups. Like
you didn't do that in your.
No, I did not do that. I don't have a bunch of brandings on all my closed groups that I'm a part of. Do you?
Asbury was serious.
Oh yeah, Asbury.
Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. No.
But curriculum. Sometimes the discussion questions don't get down to like the Greek and the Hebrew and the different things that some people are looking for with depth. And also there's mixed definitions of what you consider depth in a curriculum or in a Bible study, because when you read scripture, it is deep. And there are ways to study it when you talk about original languages and things too. But
give you my snaps. You
Yeah,
know, you ever been to like a poetry reading?
Yes.
You know, you're deep.
I can get some snaps from Pastor Matt.
There you go.
So it just also too depends on what do you mean by depth and what do you mean by the life application. Sure, I do think some curriculums do not get super real when it comes to different life situations.
Yeah. Like they live in a box.
Yeah. And but as far as depth when it comes to studying the Bible, if you're just using the Bible, then you're coming up with your own discussion questions and your own, hermeneutics and things like that. But with a curriculum, it's especially the curriculum that we're using, which we're going to talk about in a couple of minutes, but is designed to help all levels of spiritual maturity become more like Jesus. And so we have to think about it from that point of view too.
And I think that's the challenge for a lot of people is it's always in the eye of the beholder what's good and not good. I read curriculum and I read it from a position of my associates, my undergraduate, and my master's 96 hours worth of graduate work is all in theology, church studies, those sorts of things. So of course, when I read something that's supposed to be made for your typical church member who has been through Sunday school, then I look at it and like, man, this is water.
Yeah.
Right. Just the same, if I were to go to read a ledger sheet and it be Business 101 and I open that bad boy up and look at it, I'm like, this is a column. And this is a row, right? How do you read this?
Yeah.
Someone's going to look at that and be like, dude, I handle like 25 of these at one time on my monitors. And I'm like, I can't read one. And so it helps to put your feet in other people's shoes. But I think that it is a good point as you bring out that a lot of times, when you think about a curriculum writer, they're sitting in an office and they're saying, how am I writing about the walls of Jericho in this story from the Old Testament that can communicate both the biblical narrative and the biblical meaning and life application in a way that someone who is a brand new believer and someone who's a mature believer can get something out of it.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's hard, especially if you're writing it for a theme, if it's in that, if the theme is faith or like, students and kids are always different than adults, and I think the adults get the short end of the stick of that.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I really do because I still got some of my student books, and some of them are like really thin, but it's really cool like to see how they come up with a lot better words, like
creative words.
Yeah, I mean, they trendy words, Yeah. And with adults, it's like walls of Jericho, faith of Joshua, obedience, And with students, it's like fathom this, And it's like, well, adults, you could definitely tell where imagination ceases in life, and it's after the teenage years,
and that's sad.
It really is, but you got to make it fun, and I think that part of curriculum writing, the difficulty, and what we don't give enough credit for, is that they're trying to write not to our church, not to our church and the neighboring church, but to
the world,
a million churches.
I mean, it's multiple languages that this curriculum is written in, and so not just American churches too.
Right.
So there's a lot of. I know they have a Hispanic version and things like that, so they're taking that into consideration. I used to write curriculum for a major publishing company, and I can tell you, it can be difficult to think through the different illustrations you want to use and how that would come across from an inner city kid versus a country church, even. So. Yeah, sometimes it can come across as shallow, but it also depends on the teacher as well too.
I think so. Well, and so we've kind of beat the dead horse there on curriculum, ins and outs, pros and cons. Our curriculum that we're using as a church is called the Gospel Project, and it's taken us through the Bible in 3 years. We are almost to the historical books.
Yeah.
We're almost into 1st and 2nd Samuel. So we just finished up Judges, or Joshua. Just finished up Joshua.
Yeah, we're about to hit Judges.
Yeah, Judges and Ruth. And so so our curriculum goes to the Bible in 3 years. That's the commitment that we've made. We've talked with some of our leaders about the curriculum and pros and cons. Don't tie yourself in a box around the curriculum. If your Sunday school class needs to not meet on this Sunday, don't worry about trying to make up for it and get the other lesson in. Have some freedom there, and make it your own, right? As Amy said, a lot of times the benefit of curriculum, or the I don't know a better word to say this other than the goodness of curriculum, of how people receive it, is not just the curriculum, but the teacher.
Yeah.
So if you're a teacher of this curriculum, or any curriculum, if you're watching, you're not part of our church, make it your own, right? Take some ownership in that. Your leadership has asked you to be a teacher, or at least continues to invest in you as a teacher. Not because you're great at following instructions, or at least hopefully that's not the only reason, but because you are a teacher that connects with people and does a great job, and they feel that you're called by the Spirit to do this. So so take that for what it is, that they've given you that ownership, and they've tried to give you a resource. Most of the time is for two reasons when you give people curriculum: to make volunteers' lives easier, and to be consistent in the church of what's being taught.
Oh yeah.
And so those are two key things. And so our curriculum with the Gospel Project, again, goes through the Bible in 3 years. We've told our teachers to take ownership, make it yours. My class, we don't do any of the arts and crafts projects in there. And there's not a lot of that for adults, but there's a little bit of activity and things. And we just don't do that.
Yeah, we haven't been doing that either. The chart filling out and stuff, and we haven't been doing that either.
We talk about it. Yeah. I have the benefit of having a lot of education on theology and the Bible and those things. So that really, really helps me in teaching it, that I can just pull from things that I've learned that other people may not have learned, or learned as in depth as we have, that have gone to seminary and things. And that can be a benefit, and sometimes it can be a challenge, right? I have to remember I get real excited. I get real excited. And when I get on a rant and start going, man, listen, I get excited, and I go way above what I'm supposed to be teaching. And so I have to try to channel it back in, especially when I'm real caffeinated, like today. But I think that when we consider the usage of this curriculum in our church, the reason that we went with this curriculum was for two reasons. One of those is we had so much diversity of what's being taught in the Sunday school classes, which is not inherently a problem. But what we were finding was that they were being treated more like closed groups and not open groups. Not that they're getting physically branded in Sunday school classes. It's not like Yellowstone.
That is a funny thing, not real.
It's not real. April Fools. So when we think about closed groups and open groups, those closed groups, when you step into a closed group, you feel like, if I haven't been here for the study, then I'm really not going to fit. Like if someone's going through, let's just say they decide to go through Warren Wiersbe's B series. It's a great easy to understand resource. It's a little Baptist-y. We're a Baptist, but we're Methodist. So, and that normally doesn't make a big difference. We've had Sunday school classes do David Jeremiah and others, and some of our folks, their greatest resource for scholarly interpretation is John MacArthur. So. So we've got folks with different opinions and things like that, and that's fine. It's just whatever you can find resource wise at Lifeway a lot of times, or what reviews have the best on Google and those things for people. We're going to talk about resources here in just a second, but I think when we consider the usage of curriculum and those things, for our folks, it was to be able to say, here's a curriculum that anybody that comes into your Sunday school class, they don't have to catch up. They can just hop right in and be fine. And so it really formulates well with an open group. Because if not, let's just say you're going through, J.I. Packer's Knowing God, okay? And you're on chapter 4. When somebody walks in, listen, if they've missed the first 3 chapters of Knowing God, they're going to be lost. Just like with our Paul study that we did. People didn't come in the middle of that because they just felt like they missed so much. And that's a closed group. It's not that anyone can't come. It's just that there is a clear structure to how this works. And so I think curriculum helps break that mold to say anybody can come in, this is what we're doing, and it helps with that. And the other is in our church, we realized that there was a deep need for biblical literacy.
Yeah.
Say more.
I've only been here a little
over... Don't say ditto.
Yeah, I've only been here a little over a year, but I can tell with the kids and students that there's a lacking of knowledge in the basic major stories of the Old Testament. And so one of the reasons why we chose Gospel Project was because it teaches the Old Testament through a gospel lens. So every single lesson has a Christ connection. It points to Jesus. And so we killed several birds with one stone by saying we're going to do this, teach these Old Testament stories, go over them again with our adults, and some of our kids are hearing these for the first time. Some of our students are hearing these for the first time. And so there's a real need for an increase in biblical literacy here, and especially in kids and student ministries. And a huge way to do that was the Gospel Project, because it's going to teach those Old Testament stories, but it's also going to show how they push towards Jesus and how everything is connected to him, and the overarching narrative of the gospel that you see from Genesis to Revelation. And so, I would agree that there was a need for an increase in biblical literacy, especially among our kids, students, and young adults, and middle-aged adults. We have an awesome senior adult group that they know lots of things. they could teach probably circles around me, but
they can't me, that's for sure.
Yeah. But another reason why we chose this is because alignment in curriculum across the age groups does wonders for family discipleship and family ministry. And I think about it like this. Like when God first gave Moses the law, and all the people from infants through senior adults heard that one law. And then the prophets started to write, and they were hearing from God, and a prophet is somebody who hears from God and then tells the people, and they all heard the same thing together. And then when the New Testament letters starting to be written, and then the Gospels, everybody heard the same word and the same thing. And it helped with family units, but also the community, because they were holding one another accountable, because they were all hearing and learning the same word of God. And when we do that together, it really helps not just family units, not just parents and grandparents to have conversations with our kids, but it helps us all to hold one another accountable to the things that we are learning.
And that's at the goal and the heart of our curriculum, to have it from infants to senior adults is, biblical literacy is huge. I mean, that's a huge part of curriculum overall. And you got to start somewhere, right? And you could say, well, why don't we just start with the Bible? Well, that's like saying, hey, I'm teaching someone English. Why don't we start with Beowulf? That's just not not the easiest place to start for folks. If they have no experience with that narrative whatsoever, and then that's the only narrative that's used, then there's nowhere for them to grow.
Yeah.
And so you've got to start off in a way that can be impactful. And that's why I think it's so important for the teachers to know you know your class better than we do. And so sometimes people in your class have a deeper biblical knowledge than others. So take it there. Yeah. Take that lesson there. But if they don't, here's the entryway into those lessons, like for students, kids, and for young adults and middle-aged adults and others who just may not have that familiarity with the depths of Scripture. But I think the greatest goal in this, and I know some people are doing it, I wish more people would, is to utilize the curriculum that we have as a conversation piece in your day-to-day life with your loved ones. So those of you that have grandchildren at home that are going through this material, those of you that have children at home, friends, all those things, use this as conversation material. You're sitting down at lunch, sitting across the coffee table, you sitting at home, you're watching, I don't know, Jeopardy or whatever, and sitting down and say, hey, listen, we learned about the walls of Jericho. Was your lesson different than ours? Like, what did y'all talk about in the walls of Jericho? Hey, we learned about making the decision to serve God all in or all out. What does that mean to you? Right? What does it mean for your faith and your generation to be all in and all out? And what that does is it doesn't make the conversation weird. And it does take it to a deeper spiritual level than what is our standard conversation. Because most of the time it's a little uncomfortable. We're like, man, who is Jesus to you? He's my Lord and Savior. Pfft, good. All right. See you in heaven. We're ready to go. But that's not enough, right? Instead, to say to your child, like John Graham loves the wise man built the house on the rock. Yeah. And so I'll be like, hey, John Graham, what did the foolish man do? He built it on the sand. It fell down. And he gets it. He gets it. Now, he doesn't get the difference in foolishness and wisdom yet. And he does get that you shouldn't scare ducks. You should say it, whisper it and quietly and things. And I'm a bad example there because I'm like screaming and flapping my arms.
He got
like
on to you. That was a cute video.
He did get on to me, yeah. But when we think about those things, just asking the questions of like, hey, what does it mean to be all in and all out of our faith, right? I mean, if we believe in Jesus, want to be all in, what does that mean to you? So it could be simple ways to do that. Yeah. And that gives you the resources to do that. So what I want to do now as we close, and Amy, I want you to give us 2 great resources for families that might be curriculum, podcast, whatever it may be. 2 great resources that I'm going to give to.
Rooted is a great podcast. They have one for parents, and I would say that's a great resource to look at.
Is that out of North Georgia? Like, do they have a conference, a Rooted conference?
They have several different regional things.
Sorry, I mean to interrupt.
Rooted is a great one if you're looking for a podcast. And then the resources that come along with the Gospel Project, we're going to be handing those to you and doing more with those. There's kids ministry things, student ministry things, and adult things that we can send out to you. So be on the lookout for that. Look at our Facebook. It's going to be posted there. Articles that you can read to help with your learning through each week's Gospel Project. And also the participant guide for the Gospel Project is a huge resource. If you're not utilizing that, if you can't be here for Sunday school, you can still have a participant guide. We can get one to you if you're not able to be here at 10 o'clock on Sunday. So it is a great resource, too, to stay on the same path as the rest of your church. So if you're not able to attend a small group on Sunday mornings at 10 o'clock, you can still have a participant guide and go through it with the rest of your church family. So that's a couple of easy things. We can also let you know about more resources. That's what we're doing at Homegrown Faith, is talking about those things. That's what we've done for the past few weeks, and we'll be continuing to give you those things. But you have to use them in order for them to be effective.
That's 3.
Sorry.
That's 3.
I know you said 2.
I said 2, so that means I get 3.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
So first off, in that one, the Gospel Project, if you research it, you Google it, whatever, you're going to see people like Tim Keller, D.A. Carson, and some others that come up, and you can say, wow, that looks like the Gospel Coalition team. It is. But this, and they'll even say it, this is designed to be interdenominational. Yeah. There is nothing in this curriculum that Amy and I have read or that we've researched that says that it leans in a predominant way of some denominational emphasis. It's just the orthodox teaching of the Bible. Yeah. So let me just throw that out there to you. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater when you see the Gospel Coalition and think, oh, Calvinist. There are curriculums that teach with those denominational emphasis. This is not one of them. Okay, this is one that goes through the Bible in 3 years, and that's what it does. It just looks at what the Bible says and means. So three things I want to share with you. Number one, I think you need the Rule of Life podcast by John Mark Comer and Practicing the Way. It is still coming out with episodes about specific things, but they take prayer, they take fasting, they take reading the scriptures, silence and solitude. All of these things that are important spiritual disciplines. I think it's a great resource for you and one that can easily be done with your family. Matter of fact, you can create a free account on practicingtheway.org and tons of things. I took the staff through the book Practicing the Way, and we used the website specifically when we were going through Sabbath, and we created everybody a binder and showed everyone, how to put this together and how to build a Sabbath life off of this, and whether we use it or not after that is up to each staff member. But we did do that and go through that together. But it's anything about John Mark Comer is really good, but it's just a great podcast, great resource. Another one that I would tell you is the Carey Nieuwhof leadership podcast. I'm a huge Carey Nieuwhof fan. Okay,
he's pretty chill.
Yeah, I mean, anything Carey Nieuwhof does, I'm like, this is gold.
Have you seen the podcast that he did with John Mark?
Yeah. I sent it to you.
Oh, Matt was the one that sent that to me. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. He also does one with John Ortberg about how the church gave addiction recovery the 12 steps, and it was their discipleship model, and the church needs to take it back. Because the church needs it. And so it's valuable. But Carey Nieuwhof Leadership Podcast, really good. Rule of Life Podcast, really good. And then the other thing that I would say that I think is really, really good for family discipleship, leadership in the church, all of those things is a book called Growing Young by Steve Argue and Kara Powell. It's by Fuller Youth Institute. And the emphasis of the book, it's fairly new. It's less than 10 years old. And what's really cool about it is they talk about how to grow your church young, and what that means is investing in the young people in your church, young adults, middle-aged adults, whoever that is. You use that as you will. But they did some research to see churches that have a high population of young adults, what changes have those churches made. And you'll be shocked to find out it was not lights, worship styles, pastors wearing skinny jeans, anything like that. It was people investing in the lives of others, carrying them, and providing adequate tools for spiritual formation. That's the case in every single church, and giving keys, metaphorical keys to young adults for leadership in the church. Yeah. You'd be amazed to find that on those resources. So that's it for you. I hope that this has been a great series for you. Next week, we got John Loxton with the Brave program is going to be on here with us. We're looking forward to that, hear about how a local church is serving our veterans and how we can help serve them as well. So may God bless you in all the ways grow and go, and as you make disciples with your family. As always, friends, make sure to subscribe, like, and share. Thanks for all you do.